If you are the most reliable person in the room, you are the easiest person to sacrifice. That sounds wrong. It sounds cynical. It sounds like something a bitter man would say after being betrayed. But watch what happens in every office, every friend group, every family, every business partnership. When something goes wrong, who fixes it? When a deadline is missed, who stays late? When someone forgets, who remembers? When chaos erupts, who steps in calmly and says, "I'll handle it"? It's you. And because it's always you, it will always be you. The world does not reward reliability with gratitude. It rewards it with dependency. And dependency slowly turns into exploitation. The most dangerous trap is not being weak. It is being competent. It is being consistent. It is being the one person who never drops the ball, because once people learn that you will always catch it, they start throwing more. Machiavelli understood something most moral teachers refuse to admit. People are not guided primarily by gratitude or fairness. They are guided by convenience and self-interest. If your reliability makes their life easier, they will use it. Not necessarily out of malice. Not because they wake up plotting your downfall, but because humans, when given the choice between effort and comfort, almost always choose comfort. And you become comfort. You become the safety net beneath everyone else's laziness. At first it feels powerful. You are trusted. You are respected. You are the dependable one, the strong one, the mature one, the responsible one. You wear those labels like medals. But slowly something shifts. The praise becomes expectation. The gratitude becomes assumption. The request becomes obligation. Notice how nobody asks the unreliable person to fix everything. Nobody expects the chaotic person to save the day. Nobody leans on the flaky friend during a crisis. Why? Because they have trained the world not to expect much from them. You, on the other hand, trained the world to expect everything. Machiavelli wrote that men are ungrateful, fickle simulators and deceivers, avoiders of danger, eager for gain. That is not an insult. It is an observation. When things are stable, they promise loyalty. When danger comes, they retreat. When there is gain to be had, they will take it. And when there is responsibility to be avoided, they will quietly hand it to the most reliable person available, you. If you are always the one who shows up early, you will be the one asked to stay late. If you are always the one who finishes tasks perfectly, you will be given more tasks. If you are always the one who keeps your word, you will be surrounded by people who don't. This is not coincidence, it is gravity. Reliability creates imbalance. It creates asymmetry in effort. And asymmetry, if unchecked, becomes exploitation. Here is the cruel paradox. The more honorable you are, the more tempting it is to lean on you. The more disciplined you are, the more comfortable others become with their indiscipline. The more emotionally stable you are, the more emotional chaos you will be expected to absorb. Before we continue, if you're finding truth in this so far, I'd appreciate a like. And if you want to hear from me again, make sure you're subscribed. Let's keep going. Machiavelli would not tell you to become unreliable. He would tell you to become strategic, because the problem is not that you are reliable. The problem is that you are predictable. Predictability is power when you control it. It is weakness when others control it. If everyone knows, you will always say yes. Your yes has no value. If everyone knows, you will always fix mistakes. Mistakes will multiply around you. If everyone knows, you will endure disrespect quietly. Disrespect will grow bolder. Power, Machiavelli argued, belongs to those who understand perception. If you are perceived as endlessly accommodating, you will be treated as endlessly available. If you are perceived as incapable of walking away, you will never be negotiated with seriously. The reliable person often confuses moral superiority with strategic advantage. You believe that because you are right, because you are responsible, because you carry the weight without complaint, the world will eventually recognize and reward you. But Machiavelli's world is not built on eventual moral recognition. It is built on immediate incentives. Ask yourself, what incentive do people have to stop leaning on you? If you always deliver, they suffer no consequences. If you always rescue, they never learn. If you never withdraw, they never fear losing you. And fear, Machiavelli reminds us, is a more reliable foundation than love. This does not mean you must terrify people. It means there must be a cost to exploiting you. There must be uncertainty about whether you will continue to absorb their irresponsibility. Right now, there is none. You answer every call. You solve every crisis. You take pride in being the backbone, but a backbone that never stiffens becomes a cushion. Think about leaders throughout history. The ones who were too forgiving, too generous, too consistently merciful, without boundaries, were often overthrown. Why? Because people adjust to mercy. They stretch it, they test it, they exploit it until mercy becomes weakness in their eyes. The reliable employee becomes the overworked employee. The reliable friend becomes the unpaid therapist. The reliable partner becomes the emotional parent. The reliable family member becomes the default problem solver. And when you finally get tired, when you finally say no, people look at you with shock, as if you have betrayed them. How dare you stop being who we trained you to be? That is the hidden cost of being the most reliable person. You lose the right to be human. You lose the right to fail. You lose the right to rest, because your identity in the system is not a person, it is a function. Machiavelli would ask you a ruthless question. Who benefits from your current behavior? Not in theory, in practice. Does your boss benefit from your refusal to push back? Do your friends benefit from your constant availability? Does your partner benefit from your emotional endurance? Of course they do. The system is optimized around your reliability, and systems resist change. This is why simply communicating your feelings often fails, because you are not just changing a behavior. You are threatening the comfort structure that others have built around you. If you want to stop being exploited, you cannot rely on being understood. You must rely on being respected. And respect is born from boundaries, not from sacrifice. Machiavelli observed that a ruler must avoid being despised. Excessive generosity can lead to contempt because it signals weakness. When you give too much without demand, you lower your perceived value. You teach people that your time, energy, and loyalty are abundant and cheap. But what is abundant is rarely treasured. When you are always available, your presence loses weight. When you are always agreeable, your agreement loses meaning. When you are always strong, your strength becomes background noise. You may think that being indispensable protects you. It does not. It makes you useful. And useful people are kept around only as long as they are useful. The moment you burn out, the moment you falter, the moment you can no longer carry the load, the same people who relied on you will adapt. They will find another reliable person, or they will finally learn to carry their own weight. The brutal truth is this: the world adjusts faster to your absence than you think. So why does this pattern repeat? Because being reliable feels morally superior. It feels noble. It feeds your identity. You become the hero in quiet crisis. You become the savior in subtle disasters. There is pride in that. There is meaning in that. But Machiavelli would warn you that virtue without strategy is self-sabotage. You must decide where your reliability ends. You must choose when to let small fires burn so that others learn to extinguish them. You must allow discomfort to enter the system, because without discomfort, there is no growth, only dependency. This does not mean becoming cold or cruel. It means becoming selective. It means understanding that your consistency is a resource and resources must be managed. If you give loyalty to everyone, loyalty means nothing. If you give effort without limits, effort becomes expected. If you give forgiveness endlessly, betrayal becomes affordable. The reliable person is often proud of never changing. But sometimes change is the only way to regain balance. Machiavelli did not admire chaos. He admired control. And control begins with the ability to withhold. Can you withhold your time? Can you withhold your energy? Can you withhold your automatic? Yes. Or are you so attached to being the dependable one that you would rather be exploited than redefined? Because that is the real fear. If you stop over-delivering, who are you? If you stop fixing everything, what is your role? If you stop carrying others, will they still value you? These questions reveal the deeper trap. Exploitation is not always imposed. Sometimes it is unconsciously invited because being needed feels safer than being evaluated. But Machiavelli would remind you that power does not belong to the one who is most needed. It belongs to the one who can choose when to be needed. And until you learn to choose rather than automatically respond, you will remain the most reliable person in the room, and therefore the most expendable when convenience demands. Expendable does not mean useless. It means replaceable in the minds of those who depend on you without respecting you. That is the subtle shift you must understand. When people rely on you because you are competent, that is influence. When they rely on you because they assume you will tolerate anything, that is exploitation. The difference is not in what you do. It is in what they believe you will never do. Will you ever walk away? Will you ever let them face the consequences of their own negligence? Will you ever say no and mean it? If the honest answer is no, then your reliability is no longer a strength. It is a leash. Machiavelli understood that those who cannot be feared even slightly cannot be respected deeply. Again, fear does not mean terror. It means uncertainty about how far they can push you. It means awareness that there is a line and crossing it has a cost. Right now, many reliable people have no visible line. They endure subtle disrespect. They accept last-minute demands. They tolerate broken promises. They absorb emotional volatility. They clean up after irresponsibility. And they do it with composure, with maturity, with a quiet sigh and a smile that says, "It's fine." If you're exhausted from saying it's fine when it's actually not, comment the words "no more" down below, because it is in fact not fine. And everyone around you knows that. But they also know you will handle it, so they let you. The reliable person often believes that their silent endurance is strength. And in some ways it is. Discipline is strength. Emotional regulation is strength. Consistency is strength. But strength without boundaries invites invasion. Think of a fortress with tall, strong walls but no gatekeeper. Anyone can enter. Not because the walls are weak, but because there is no enforcement. You have built the walls. You have not guarded the gate. Machiavelli warned rulers about being overly generous because generosity drains resources. If you keep giving, you must keep taxing. If you keep excusing, you must keep absorbing damage. Eventually, the cost becomes unsustainable. Translate that into your life. Every time you overextend, you are taxing your future energy. Every time you forgive without correction, you are financing someone else's irresponsibility. Every time you fix what is not your responsibility, you are teaching others that it is. And people learn fast. The most dangerous moment for the reliable person is not when they are overwhelmed. It is when they are praised. "You're the only one I can count on. You always come through. I don't know what we do without you." It sounds like appreciation, and sometimes it is, but sometimes it is a confession. A confession that they have no intention of improving because you exist. You become the insurance policy for their lack of discipline. Machiavelli observed that men are quick to offend those who make themselves too accessible. Why? Because accessibility lowers perceived status. When you are always available, you appear to have nothing better to protect. Scarcity creates value. Distance creates intrigue. Selective engagement creates respect. This is why the unreliable person is often treated with surprising care. People tread lightly around them. They do not pile on tasks. They do not assume favors. They do not expect miracles because they have been conditioned not to. But you have conditioned people in the opposite direction. You respond instantly. You over-deliver. You smooth over tension. You anticipate needs. You solve problems before they escalate. You are efficient, effective, and emotionally steady. And so the world adjusts by relaxing around you. Imagine two employees. One consistently misses deadlines. The other never does. When a critical project appears at the last minute, who gets it? Not the unreliable one. The manager knows that would be risky. It goes to the dependable one again and again and again. The dependable employee thinks this proves my value. It does, but it also proves your willingness to carry disproportionate weight. Without boundaries, value becomes burden. Machiavelli would ask, are you building authority or are you building resentment? Because here is the silent truth. Reliable people often become quietly resentful, not outwardly bitter, not openly angry, but internally exhausted. They begin to notice the imbalance. They begin to feel unseen. They begin to question why effort is not reciprocated, but they continue anyway. Why? Because stopping feels dangerous. If you stop being the reliable one, you risk losing your identity. You risk disappointing people. You risk conflict. And conflict is uncomfortable, especially for someone who has built their reputation on stability. But consider this: the longer you avoid small conflicts, the more likely you are to create a massive one. Burnout is not gentle. It does not politely announce itself. It erupts. It turns patience into coldness. It turns kindness into indifference. It turns commitment into withdrawal. And when that happens, people will say, "You've changed." Yes, you have. Because unsustainable reliability always collapses eventually. Machiavelli admired adaptability. A ruler who never changes strategy even when circumstances shift invites ruin. Likewise, a person who never adjusts their boundaries invites exploitation. Reliability should be a strategic choice, not an automatic reflex. You must learn to distinguish between responsibility and rescue. Responsibility is doing what is yours to do. Rescue is doing what others should have done for themselves. The reliable person blurs this line constantly. You step in early. You anticipate failure. You prevent discomfort. You eliminate consequences before they reach the person who caused them. And in doing so, you create a world where you are essential but not respected. There is a difference. Essential means they need your function. Respected means they value your limits. Machiavelli argued that it is safer to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. But the deeper principle is this: it is dangerous to be loved for the wrong reasons. If people love you because you make their lives easier without demanding accountability, that love is conditional. It depends on your continued sacrifice. The moment you stop sacrificing, that love cools. Watch closely what happens the first time you decline something unreasonable. Observe the subtle reactions: surprise, disappointment, perhaps even irritation. Not because you were wrong, but because you disrupted the pattern. You removed the cushion. And here is the uncomfortable truth. Some people prefer you exhausted as long as they remain comfortable. Not consciously, not maliciously, but structurally. If your exhaustion stabilizes the system will resist your rest. So what does a strategic mind do? It introduces friction, small controlled friction. You do not answer immediately every time. You let others solve minor issues. You decline tasks that do not align with your priorities. You allow deadlines to pressure those responsible instead of absorbing the pressure yourself. At first it feels wrong. You will feel guilt because you are breaking your own identity. But Machiavelli would say that identity must serve power, not undermine it. If your self-image as the reliable one makes you predictable, and predictability makes you exploitable, then your identity needs refinement. Reliability is admirable. Blind reliability is exploitable. The goal is not to become unreliable. It is to become selectively reliable. There is a difference between being someone who always delivers and being someone who delivers when it matters most. If you give peak effort to everything, nothing stands out. If you reserve your full force for critical moments, your presence carries weight. This is how influence is built. When people know you will not automatically save them, they begin to prepare differently. When they know your yes is not guaranteed, they ask more carefully. When they know your time is limited, they value it more. Scarcity disciplines others. Machiavelli warned against being neutral in conflicts because neutrality often benefits the stronger party in your life. Constant reliability is a form of neutrality. You smooth everything. You absorb tension. You prevent natural consequences from playing out. But consequences are teachers. If you constantly intercept them, others remain undisciplined. And undisciplined people will always lean on the disciplined one until the disciplined one collapses. You must ask yourself a brutal question. Are you helping people grow, or are you helping them avoid growth? Because those are not the same thing. When you fix someone's mistake repeatedly, you are not kind. You are complicit in their stagnation. Machiavelli would not waste energy blaming others for exploiting him. He would analyze how his own predictability enabled it. And that is where your power lies. Not in resenting the world, not in withdrawing entirely, but in recalibrating how and when you show up. The most reliable person in the room should not be the one carrying everything. They should be the one choosing what to carry. If you never choose, if you simply react, you are not powerful. You are programmed. And a programmed person is easy to use. The transformation begins the moment you realize that your reliability is not a moral obligation to everyone. It is a strategic asset that must be guarded. Guarded from overuse, guarded from entitlement, guarded from those who confuse your strength with their right. Because if you do not guard it, others will consume it. And they will call it normal. They will call it teamwork. They will call it love. They will call it friendship. They will call it opportunity. But beneath the labels, the pattern remains the same. You give more than you receive. You carry more than you should. You endure more than you admit. And slowly, the most reliable person in the room becomes the quietest prisoner of their own reputation.